Good afternoon and welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. I'm very excited to have a friend of mine who I met about a year ago now, just a little over a year ago, at a great personal development event called Build Your Own Blueprint with Hal Elrod and John Berghoff. And Julie did speak on stage, and I got to meet her with some of the other speakers, and we had a great connection, got to chat, and I really enjoyed Julie's story. And since then, she has created the School of Sacredology. She is a master life coach, an author, a speaker. She founded the Life Designer Coaching Academy, as well as has done many other things. And she has been featured in Forbes, Mind, Body, Green, a whole slew of things. But I'll let Julie share a little bit more about her. Thank you so much for coming on today, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm really excited. I'm honored to be here, and I loved your energy right away when we met last year in San Diego, and I love what you're doing. And my whole thing in life is how can I be of greater service? I've had many people that have supported me, and just really honored to be part of what you're doing today. It's awesome.
I really appreciate that. And one of the reasons that I do this show is to help people become more aware of their health, their wellness, whether that's physical, mental, spiritual, on the weekends. We often take breaks during the weekends because we're pushing hard during the week. And so if we can have a topic that we can hear or discuss or hear a conversation that allows us to learn a little bit on the weekend, it just pulls us back into our body and how we can become the best version of ourselves. So I really appreciate that because you fit in this category very, very well. And I'd love to jump in a little bit on your background because you have a little bit of a unique journey, and I think a lot of people can relate to it and really benefit from hearing about it.
Yeah, I'm happy. Do you want me to I can just dive in. I mean, I think
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Well, I think it's very easy to hear, I've done this and I've done that. And it's like, first of all, I'm human with a lot of areas I'm working on every day. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that I am constant lifelong learner and evolving. And I think it's important to know a little bit of the backstory because for me, everything I do today has really stemmed out of quite a bit of pain and disconnect.
Mhm.
And that is why the first thing I said, being of service, doing what I'm, this whole world of coaching and helping people stems from a place where a lot of growth and a lot of transformation and from a lot of pain. I am somebody, I grew up in the Boston area. For anyone who knows the Boston area, it's right near some of the most intense colleges, universities. I went to a very, like a sort of highly intellectual school
Yeah.
community and doing well on all, like there was no just doing well in school. I always remember in my high school, it was like literally everyone I was friends with was going to an Ivy League school. Just it's very competitive. And it just breeded for me this like feeling of not good enough and comparing myself. I
Mhm.
also didn't realize, my intelligence is more in the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the understanding
Yeah.
energy in people. I'm a smart girl, but like I would not say like a lot of the school subjects were not easy for me. I had to work really hard.
Mhm.
Point being, I dealt with these feelings like not feeling good enough and struggles at home. I had very loving parents. My dad had undiagnosed PTSD. He's a Vietnam
Oh.
veteran, bipolar, depression. My mom has anxiety. I mean, it's just, if I can say it, but
Wow.
it's a shit show. Um,
Yeah.
Very loving, but for me, the way I coped and the way that we showed love in my household was through food. And so I really, it became my best friend. And I turned to food to help me cope, to feel, to numb. And the guy I liked said that he was definitely not into me. I'll spare the details, but I remember in 8th grade, I just remember like making myself, I mean, I was just creative. I would use whatever we had in the house. Like I knew how to make some weird stuff with food, but I just hating myself with food. Like
Yeah.
I mean, we could, that's a whole other conversation. If you want to like know how to binge on minimal, items, and I had to do that.
Mhm.
So it just became a pattern, and it was for me an addictive way of being, thinking. I was like caught in this circle pattern of not good enough. And the problem is, this is one of the reasons I love this work around coaching, is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So
Yeah.
what would happen is the more I did, the more I achieved, the more I would have to achieve. And so this comparing often with myself, but comparing is comparing. And when you're comparing, you're out of the
Mhm.
lane of being present. That's why I'm constantly reminding myself to be. It's one of the
Yeah.
first things I did in my business was create this shirt because I'm like, I need the reminder to be still, to be present, to be
Mhm.
in the moment. If I'm thinking about what I didn't do or what I need to do, that's not in the moment. So yeah, I really found myself. The long story short is I found myself. I remember this in May in 2003. I was miserable. You would never know it because I wore a smile at all times. I tend to smile a lot, and I had my hands in a bag of M&Ms, and it was like, do I drive into a tree or do I get support and go to a support group? And it was really pivotal. It was a scary moment because I really, really considered, ending what seemed like a very fine life.
Yeah.
Because I felt so empty inside. And thank God I did not go into the tree. I went to this support group, and I've
Yeah.
changed my life. And it steered me in a new direction that is really the foundation of everything I do and everything I believe in. And I can talk more about it if that's of interest. But
Yeah. So when you made that decision,
yeah.
that's hard. So imagine, did you reach out for support? Did you let people know, say, hey, I'm going to do this. Please support me in this journey? How did that happen?
Well, it's a great question, Amy. And I think this is why intuition to me is like something I believe I just feel like need to learn to honor, listen to, and trust.
Mhm.
I believe in serendipity and synchronicity and
Yeah.
timing. I had happened to reacquaint myself with a family friend who's a therapist, and we made a
Okay.
deal. She was going to help me like figure out my career. I
Mhm.
was in a good job, but it was a nonprofit. It just wasn't what I wanted to do at the time, and I decided I was going to redesign her kitchen and repaint it for her, and like I loved
Oh,
stuff like that. And
yeah.
we were talking in the kitchen, and I was saying I'm like really struggling with food, like really struggling. And she said, "Have you
Mhm.
heard of this support group, the 12-step group?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, I know people in that. It's kind of like
Yeah.
I had all these judgments." And that night, I'd happened to look up a meeting in my area, and it was that night. It was like, do I go in the tree or do I? And I was on my way to that meeting, and that is where I started going to, 3 to 5 meetings a week.
Mm.
Worked with a trusted sponsor, a guide. I mean, I really therapy too, and then I found a coach that really helped to shift. But it was
Mhm.
my inner voice that said, "Go to the
Yeah.
meeting. Just go to this meeting tonight. If you just go to this meeting, your whole life will change." And I
Yeah.
listened to that, that's that inner voice, that inner wisdom. I believe is our key to the connection to our higher self, or USU is what I call it, or you could think of it as your connection to whatever you call that something power greater than yourself, whatever you refer to that as.
Yeah, and I'm curious, do you experience that every day? Because some people have no idea what
Yeah,
we're even talking about with intuition. I know there was at a point in my life I had no idea.
yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? So, can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's actually, if I were to have time with you or anybody,
Hmm.
I know we all have it and it occurs in different ways. So,
Yeah.
for some, for example, you probably heard me say, I heard a voice. You might get a sensation in your body when you know something or feel something or sense something is off or very right. So, for some, we experience that feeling or sensation, or like something was planted in us, a knowing, or I also tend to get visions. I'm very visionary. So, I'll get an image of something in the future. That's not everyone has that piece. I
Hmm.
also hear it. So we all have a different way of interpreting this information that's not it doesn't make sense because it's not logical, but
Yeah.
we know something. So like if I asked you or anyone listening, think of a time in the past where you just had a knowing or a sense or a feeling or an intuition or a gut. My guess is you probably have a time you can remember. I'm assuming there's some time
Hmm.
you remember that was like, oh yeah, I had that.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, most of us do feel that, but we don't recognize that means we're supposed to act differently.
Yes, we've been taught, and as I said earlier, this is why I mentioned the whole growing up in a hyper intellectual place. I was
Hmm.
raised in like, next to Harvard, okay, like literally in the mecca of the
Oh, yeah.
most intense universities. And it was like intellect, mind, logic first. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that's not what innately guides me, but we are taught that is, and it's important, but we're
Hmm.
really not, maybe more so now, but we're really not taught in school. We're not taught, oh, how do you actually find and listen to the inner wisdom, that that non-logical part of you that frankly I think is the brilliance that's connected to your heart intelligence, which we can talk about.
Mhm.
But everybody has this in some way. It's like a snowflake. It's going to be unique. Your way there. I do have four kind of specific ways. Usually, I think that we intuit and take in
Mhm.
information. But the thing is, you've got to start noticing it and you've got to start trusting it. And that doesn't happen overnight. I always recommend go back and do an inventory. When have you heard that or sensed that or felt that or gotten an image? What happened when you listened? What happened when you didn't follow it? And then start to track it going forward. My entire business and rest of my life is powered by intuition. And I've been tracking it for years now. There's a huge difference when I really honor it and take action, inspired action versus when I just do what's, logical and what I should be doing.
Yeah. And I can imagine the steps that you're talking about right now is if you're not sure whether it's good or bad, you go back and look at it. That kind of helps build some confidence. Because if you're full of fear,
Yes.
you're not going to trust your intuition or your decisions that are based on your intuition. And that doesn't set you up for success in this realm either.
That is part of why, look, every thought has a sponsoring thought underneath it. It is going to be either fear or it's
Mhm.
going to be love. They're one or the other. So
Yeah.
if you're coming from fear, you know what I've heard of the great acronym false evidence appearing real. The problem is if we have enough of it, we create the pattern and
Yeah.
the neurological pattern and the firing and the wiring, you believe it. And so the best thing you can do is number one, start to do a little inventory, see what happened when you listened or took action and didn't. Start to track it like, oh, I got this. Start to notice, oh, I felt it in my belly. Oh, something doesn't feel right here. And maybe you do decide to follow it and then notice what happens, or you don't follow it, notice what happens. But somewhere track it. And then I do think support, whether it's an accountability person, coaching, but somebody that can help you. I really think this is like the it's like we all have this incredible, you can't even put it, it's a priceless tool that is
Yeah.
not based on on norms in the society, which frankly a lot of them I don't think were designed for our highest good. And
Yeah.
it's like the best way to know what's best for you individually is
Mhm.
this inner guidance. And so I'm a huge fan because once you start to notice it, acknowledge it, build even the tiniest little bit of confidence in it. I mean, my life did a 180. And I've got to say, it doesn't mean it's been easy. I've had some really profound moments of truth. I think I shared on
Mhm.
stage about this, like,
Yeah.
waking up in the middle of the night, realizing I was in a marriage that was not working for me. I had two kids under the age of two. Like, I did not
Yeah.
want to deal with that one. The same thing with when my thyroid stopped working. I had an intuition about that, about leaving my job, about writing a book. Like some of them, I'm like, are you effing crazy? I don't want to do that. That's where you need support. I don't care what it is, but you don't have to take action. But the thing is,
Mhm.
what I've seen and what I've seen with clients is that this is your most direct line to your soul's desire and plan of life here. And so it's so important to start paying attention to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you've kind of mentioned, you've touched a little bit that we may feel it in our gut or we may see something. So you have different intuitive types, right? Can you touch on those a little bit? Because you also have a quiz that I really think all of our listeners should jump on and go try. But can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, this again, all of this is kind of stemmed out of like my obsession. And I always do things that I would want. Like the book I
Yeah.
wrote for me or my younger self, this assessment. I was like, oh man, I would love this assessment. Like, where am
Hmm.
I? So the idea is we all have typically a dominant intuitive type. The beautiful thing is, the powerful thing is, the more you tune in and appreciate and acknowledge and track it and work with your intuitive type, the more that it grows. It's like anything, what you appreciate. So I put it into four types, and
Okay.
it's very similar for those who know anything about. We all have the ability to sense information in different ways. So you might have heard the terms like clairsentient or clairvoyant, which
Hmm.
tends to get the rap of like the psychic intuitive realm.
Hmm.
The truth is, we all have this ability to intuitive information. So I kind of liked bringing it a little bit more down to earth, the words that I use.
Yeah.
So the four types are visionary, volume, visceral, and vessel.
Okay.
So I, at this point, for example, have all four. This information comes to me, all four. I don't always
Wow.
know. I can't be in my head about it. I have some examples I can share later, but usually we start with one dominant type. So visionary would be like getting an image, a vision, like in your mind's eye and your third eye, seeing something. So those who you can hear this, and if you've studied, it's interesting. If you've studied NLP, often people that are vision focused will say things like, "Oh, I can see that." So listening, tuning into yourself. Do you see things, or volume? Do you hear things? I have a strong audio
Oh.
tuner. I hear a lot of things, and that may sound like I'm crazy. And maybe in some ways, but in this case, waking up in the middle of the night and I just heard, "You're not okay here." I could hear
Hmm.
that. It sounded like a very calm version of myself. So that's like the hearing. Um, Vessel and visceral. Vessel is like that vessel for that information. It's
Okay.
like the information is planted in you, and you just somehow have this knowing. I think of it like if you planted a tree and it just pops up, and it's like, I don't know how that got planted, but I know this.
Yeah.
Uh, Visceral is that feeling, that sensation, like my body is telling me, my belly is telling me, I have chills, I have a heart weird sensation.
Hmm.
Probably for those listening, you probably have more than one, but we typically have one dominant type, and it's helpful to know it because you can start to actually be like, oh, well, if I'm visionary, I'm going to really pay attention to the images I'm getting or to the sensations in my body. So I have a quiz. It's really, really simple, and it tells you
Hmm.
what your dominant type is.
I think that would be a great thing for people to do. And we'll put up your website and how people can get that in a little bit. But I think that would be a great thing just because it'll help people think about some questions and how they really respond. So when they get their answer, they can see the correlation between what's happened in their life and what the answer is to help them develop that more. Yeah. So,
That's the intention, exactly. To be, well, the more aware you and I that we are of ourselves, it's like this to me is the education that I think is missing. I mean, that's why I wrote Get a PhD in You. It's all
yeah.
about like get the PhD in yourself. Yes, you can go and get it in psychology or in whatever field, but do it in yourself because you are going to be with yourself the rest of your life. Like you do want to
Yeah.
know, how does my body react? Where is my inner wisdom usually showing up first? Like these are clues. No
Hmm.
one else can give that to you.
Completely agree. And that's important. It helps us function in our life and be better at our job, our career, our relationships, all of our functions once we know ourselves better. And then it's how we can grow too. If we then know how to work on something, if we want to change something about ourselves. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, one other thing that you had mentioned a little bit earlier is heart intelligence, and that's very closely tied to intuition. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes, and I am by no means an expert.
Yeah.
The whole realm of heart intelligence really has been shown and proven, and there's so much research done. I mean, lots of really high quality scientific research on this by one of my favorite organizations in the world, HeartMath, the
Yeah.
HeartMath Institute. I've thankfully gotten to know Dr. Roland McCready, who's the head scientist there, and has literally been able to tune into what we call heart coherence.
Hmm.
There's a variability in your heart, and it can show through. There's actually a device you can use that shows your variability and that creates that coherence between your heart and your mind, your brain. But heart intelligence is literally it's getting that our heart is more than just an organ that pumps blood. There is an electromagnetic field. It is also, we are all connected in this field, the unified field, the quantum field, and heart energy, heart intelligence is a thing. We actually, information that comes in from the field actually goes into, it is perceived by your heart, then it travels up to your brain and then back to your heart, which most people don't realize. So your heart has over 40,000 sensory neurites, that what makes them different, so it's very similar sensory neurites like the brain that can perceive information. The difference is your heart is not a polar organ, so the brain is, which means, things like analysis paralysis. You're going to go like, do I do this? Do I do that? I'm going to look at this side of it and that side of it. Your heart is
Hmm.
So when you learn to tune into your heart energy and heart intelligence, you can start to ask your heart questions, direct questions, and you will get a response, which I believe the response I'm getting from here in my heart, like that is very different. And there's actually a tool, exercise you can do where you can see the difference between what comes from your brain and what comes from your heart.
Oh, that's neat.
It's really neat. It's really powerful. It's free. It's with you. And the more you practice this, the more it's mind blowing. I have to say, I'm like, why are we not teaching this to first graders and kindergartners? Because
Yeah.
what you need to know, it goes back to, the guru is inside of you, which I believe. Like what you need to know is in you. You got to get quiet enough. You got to focus so you can hear it or sense it or feel it or see it. Otherwise, you're going to miss it. You might try to follow what everyone else is doing. And that's where I got into the comparing zone. It was terrible. I was
Yeah.
not in tune with me. So, 18 years later, I'm in tune with what's going on. But there were a lot of years where I was not.
Yeah. And luckily, you have the intuition and you'd worked on it and you figured it out to recognize there was a difference between where you were and where you want to be to feel the coherence. And the other thing too is sometimes we just need to meet the right people who can teach us how to access things about our own body. And I say that often to people that I could say something that may resonate with someone but might not. So I'm not the right person to guide that person further into their own healing. So, and that's part of bringing you on here is you have a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge about intuition, about emotional intelligence that have really helped you and helped other people in your world. And it's great because someone may learn, hear about this heart intelligence, go look up Heart Math, the company, and try to start learning more about it. Because I did hear them speak last year, and when they were talking about it, it's really fascinating stuff.
Oh, yeah. A great free resource is the Heart
Mhm.
Math Experience. It's their 90-minute film. I don't have any connection other than, I mean, I've done
Mhm.
interviewing them, and I just love, I believe this is what is missing in our world right now. I think the more we all tune into heart energy, heart intelligence, it changes the game of life in our
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah, I completely agree because I do believe that we all influence each other. I mean, if we think about the time that we're in a group of, of people and someone walks in the room and they're just vivacious, friendly energy, everyone gravitates towards them.
Yep.
And there's a reason. It's powerful.
Yeah. And often that's because they're open hearted.
Yeah.
Feel that their heart is open. And that's, I think that's what we're moving into. And I kind of here and is that we all can be a little more open-hearted with ourselves and then with others.
Yeah. So do you use some of the heart intelligence and the principles of that for teaching people about self-care? Is that part of
Yeah,
self-care for you?
great question. I'm like, ooh, self-care is like, I did a 12 series, sacred self-care series on Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm like, there is a lot to self-care, but here's what I think to boil it
Mhm.
down. Yes, I think heart intelligence, honoring your heart wisdom is like the golden thread in anything you do. I really think self-care, and I call it sacred self-care because I really think it needs to be elevated to like, this is sacred, holy territory. And I don't mean that
Mhm.
from a religious perspective. I mean, when you understand, your mind, body, soul are all connected. No one's going to take care of you the way you are. No one can take care of me, myself, in the best way that I need. Um, it is like, for me, I did so many years of not caring for myself and being a people pleaser. I call myself like recovering people pleaser with codependency tendencies. Like if you've an overachiever, you put all that in a mix and it's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I believe my autoimmune condition is because of that. I mean, the stress that's connected is there. So sacred self-care, to me, it's anything and everything that is loving, that is kind, that's honoring you, and that's giving you time and resources and space to take care of yourself. If that's, for me, it's like the non-negotiables, getting at least 8 hours of sleep. I do Reiki on myself every morning, meditating twice a day. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Move every day. I do a surrender offering and prayer, like just so I'm not getting my own way, but the divine is with me. I mean, there's so many ways, but certainly when I go to bed and wake up, the first thing I do is put my hand my heart every morning and night, and just
Mhm.
tune into there. So it's like everything I think you want to have that connection to relates to that greater compassion. It's to love. It's to the fact that that we see ourselves often in such a negative light, and it's changing that inner dialogue. I caught myself this morning.
Yeah.
I was like, Julie, I literally, it's so cool. I've done it enough now. And I heard, you're doing a good job. What are you getting angry about? Like, you're doing a good job. And it was really funny. I'm like, wow, I'm having two conversations with myself, but it worked because I was like, I am doing a good job. Why am I so hard on myself? Like,
Yeah.
I'm guessing if you're watching, you're probably someone that, you probably talked to Amy that's in the high achiever or like not doing good enough. I could be doing more. And I just want to say, you're doing an amazing job here. Like you're on
Yeah.
planet Earth in a pandemic and you're tuning in or you're doing the best you can. And like,
Mhm.
I don't think that there's a higher power that's judging ever. So I try to see myself from that greater love, compassion perspective, which to me is the energy of the heart.
Yeah. And I love that. It's great because you're right. We are really hard on ourselves all the time, and it stems from comparison.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe seeing someone on social media who's doing well and just show love to them, we compare, "Oh, I'm not doing as well." And it then leads to those wonderful thoughts of self doubt and criticism that don't really serve us at all. And so many people now are saying, would you ever talk to yourself that way or your best friend that way? If you wouldn't talk to your best friend that way, why would you talk to yourself that way? And I think so much of that's true. So,
Absolutely. And it's something I think for most of us, we have to, I've had to put attention to re-circuit the wires there,
yeah.
reteach myself. We all come from different backgrounds. So I don't know how you were nurtured, what the conversation in your head is, but I've been at this a long time and I still have this come up. And look, I think we're in a transitioning consciousness on this
Mm-hmm.
planet, and the best thing you can do for yourself and the world is to love yourself like your life depends on it, honestly, and to care for yourself like your life depends on it. I have seen it actually does depend, mine does depend on it, and you truly cannot give if you don't have it yourself. And so it's the opposite of selfish. I wrote an article about this. And like, we need to turn that word and throw it away. Yes, there's certain things that I would consider selfish, but self-care, self-love, caring for yourself, it's the opposite. My whole point was want to be self-full. You got to be full in yourself. If you're not, you're going to run on fumes. And by the way, I think a lot of our illnesses and adrenal issues, all of that, I
Mm-hmm.
think is connected to lacking in feeling filled in ourselves.
I completely agree because it just kicks in that fight or flight nervous system. People ramp up so much, they can't come back down because nothing satisfies them. They forgot what gratitude feels like, that feeling of love, appreciation. And if you can't feel that, you're going to try to find some other external stimulus, some high or whatever to try to be able to feel. And scary.
Well, I think if I can just call myself out and others that might be watching and can relate to this, somebody who struggled with that addictive patterning, for you, it might be for others, it might be food, it might be drugs, it might be alcohol, it could be TV, it could be social media, um, it could be gambling, sex, any of those. I just recently, I've been very on top of like having a healthy relationship with nourishment and food, but often that behavior comes out sideways. And I just, it's funny, I was talking to my sister today and I was like, Em, I think I just hit me that I'm a workaholic. Like I really have the behavior traits of someone who's a workaholic, meaning it's hard to put stuff down and leave it. Like I didn't even see it because I love what I'm doing. And she's like, yeah, you totally are. And I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell me? But you have to discover it for yourself. And so
Mhm.
now I'm like, oh my God, I missed it. And here's the thing, it's not something to wear as a badge of honor, because I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, that has been hurting me in terms of not spending much time with my kids, being as present, um, being having time off. Like I'm seeing it now and starting to shift, but there have been many months and years, honestly, that I would work, 12 to 18 hours a day and feel like I could keep going. And I
Yeah.
just, so whatever it is, just look and see, we often all have something we're doing that's trying to cope. You don't have to be, an addict per se.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we search for things that we think we can control
Yeah.
and then dive into that or spend time with it, whether it gives us pleasure or a sense of power. I completely agree. So, with your school, Sacredology, can you touch on that? Like, what does that involve? What does all that mean? You touched a little bit on sacred self care. I imagine that's part of it.
Yeah, I'll share the story behind it because
Mhm.
it's really I think it's important for people to hear because this was like I feel like this was brought down from somewhere else. This was not something on my radar prior. I mean, it was about a year ago, but not something I thought I was going to turn into a school. Long story short, I'm going to say this quickly, but it highlights intuition. It highlights following it. A little over a year ago, last summer, my dad had fallen down 13 concrete stairs. I'd actually had a very weird situation. I was driving home from the beach and I
Mhm.
saw a sign, electronic sign that said, call Ron. My dad's name is Ron. The whole thing went from like, it was like an advertising, like
Oh, wow.
people and margaritas. It went blank and then it said, call Ron. And I know it sounds crazy. I'm like, what's up with my dad? And it turns out 5 minutes earlier, he had fallen downstairs. I talked to him the next morning. He called me from the hospital, freaked me out. I got to be honest, that sign
I,
freaked me very in my face. And I decided to fly home the next weekend to Boston. And I was in the airport, and some book it wasn't even a book I would be interested in, but I'm pretty attuned right in these days. And I just saw the word sacred, and it like, all I can tell you is the gold around me, it lit up like gold. And I thought, what the heck is that about? So this is last June of 2019. I started writing on the phone, sacred. What does this mean, sacred? And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Scared and sacred are the same words, same letters. Scared and sacred. Why would it like? And I just start writing and writing and writing. And then I hear in my inner voice, I hear sacredology. I'm thinking, Sacredology. Have I heard that? Is that a thing? I don't know. I'll look it up when I get off the plane. I didn't have internet.
mhm.
So I'm like, I'm going to like, for a year, I've been at the gym. I would get on the bike and like just take notes what it meant to me.
Mhm.
Then in this pandemic, literally, it was like March 16th, that Monday, I woke up literally from sleeping and I heard a voice that said, your mission just started. You need to start this school of sacredology right now.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I mean, start a school of sacredology. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Mhm.
source, universe, spirit.
Yeah.
What does this mean? And I
Mhm.
had a friend that I'd been working with, and I was like, can you help me like figure this out? And it just started pouring out. I'm like, oh my God, it's about helping people go from fear to faith, from scared
Yeah.
to sacred, that you and I are sacred in every moment, how to be with how to trust your heart intelligence, your intuition, how to live from this place. And the first person I brought on to do a masterclass was Dr. Debbie Rosman, who's the CEO of HeartMath, which was such a gift.
That's
Um,
amazing.
we meet every other week. It's a membership, but it's like amazing community, super heart centered, all on intuition. We have master classes. There are live sessions. Like it is community of love and heart, and it's really been incredibly powerful during this time. And
Yeah.
I feel like this was dropped down a year ago. It's just really interesting to watch it evolve.
That's incredible. And so when people it's an online course that they do as well, or is there they join when you have live sessions? Is it kind of that both or
It's what I say is school's always in session. So you
yeah.
can find it's an ongoing membership community.
Okay.
Unlike many other, I wouldn't say it's a course, but there are frameworks that you get. There's a lot of like meditations and all kinds of resources in the membership portal, but it's
Mhm.
really community. It's a live,
Oh,
sacred
good.
community to come together, to connect, to commune, to share, to learn, to grow, to experience.
Yeah.
We brought in every month. We have a master class with some amazing healers and luminaries and experts on intuition. We have Dr. Roland McCready coming actually Tuesday. I
Oh,
can put
neat.
a link. Actually, it's free. Look it up,
Yeah.
everybody, and it's on the science of intuition.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, if you can share that with me and I'll post it because I
Yep.
imagine people would love to join that, especially going into the new year, kind of get ready. And a lot of
Yes.
people want to make changes to get ready for the new year. So I think that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
juliereisler.com/masterclass. It's free.
Okay. Okay. We can definitely do that. And that's this coming Tuesday, right?
29th. Yep. It's
Okay.
free. I wanted to open it to anyone because I just think this is so important. I know it's like not as sexy as like go like eat less and move more and you'll feel better. But I think your
Yeah.
intuition is like the biggest, best kept secret that we all have access to that is a game changer. I mean, it's changed my life following it.
Yeah. And that's amazing. So when you look at self-care and when you teach other people, do you have different aspects or areas of self-care that you touch on? Or do you encourage people to figure out their own self-care, a combination of both?
Yeah. I am very, yes. So I think I definitely recommend people do their own inventory of where they feel they need support. But I
Mhm.
do think there's some basics that I always touch upon. Number one, it's I'm wearing this, always stillness, meditation, whatever that looks like. It could be a walking meditation in nature. Stillness is crucial. Sleep is probably just on par, really getting enough healing, rest, but stillness so that you can start. You have to get some stillness and some time in silence because that's where we start to be able to tune in and clear out the noise.
Yeah.
I do think intuitive journaling is an important one, and then I try to do that daily where you ask a big question or a question you don't know the answer to, and you just write whatever comes up without going here, just let it come out. The basics, again, the like non-sexy answer is yes. I think
Yeah.
eating as much earth foods is what I call
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
uh, Getting in nature, getting vitamin D from the sun, moving, basics. And I think support, I think especially right now, if it's an accountability partner, if it's a guide, a sponsor, a coach, a mentor, a
Hmm.
community, you've
Yeah.
got to find people you feel comfortable connected to that you can really have that ongoing support. I always say, and I learned this from the support group, 18 years ago, I do not do life alone. I have a team, and
Hmm.
that has helped me. I can't do this thing by myself, nor do I want to.
Yeah, and as we kind of talked a little bit before, there's a lot of power in coaching and finding someone to be your mentor. And you received a master's in this, right? Health and life coaching. What are some of the important things for people to consider if they're looking for a coach? Because there's a lot of people who classify themselves as a coach nowadays, and that may be valid. It may
Yep.
not be. So I'm curious, how can we help people really find a coach?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will say coaching changed my life about 13 years ago when I was in the thick of like, do I stay married? Do I not? And I had this coach in the personal development program who asked me the most powerful question that literally changed my view in 1 second. It was like, if your life, you knew your life would be amazing, what would you choose? And I hadn't thought of it as a choice. I thought I was like doomed. And I realized I don't want to stay married and I'm going to do that as kindly as I can. And I
Mhm.
started coaching with this program. I loved it. And then I felt like I have got to do more with this. And so I went back and got a master's degree and certified
Oh, okay.
in health and wellness coaching and life coaching. And so look, and I've taught at Georgetown the last 5 years. I've been coaching
Mhm.
for 10 years. When I started, it was not where it is now. Now,
Yeah.
like here's what I would say about it, and be careful because I know some people are not certified and are probably excellent coaches
Mhm.
naturally. But what we have to remember is the true definition of coaching is not telling someone what to do. It's not consulting. It's not counseling. So there are people that call themselves coaches, and when I've been in connection with them, while I think what they're doing is really powerful, I would not call that coaching.
Mhm.
Giving the answers, telling someone to do, that's more mentorship, that's more consulting, which is fine if you're looking for someone to do that. Just know pure coaching is really seeing you, the other person, seeing that you're the expert of your life. What you become an expert at coaching is learning how to ask very deep, powerful questions, hearing what's not being said. The difference with therapy and coaching is there's also a big focus on the present and the future and designing actions to help you develop on your goals and dreams to make transformations. So for me, right away, I was like, oh, this is really like designing your life. And so I trademarked Life Designer. It was the first thing I paid for, left my day job, had no savings, single mom. Probably thought
Mhm.
of it as like, I was like, what the hell am I doing? But my
Yeah.
intuition was like, do this. I spent my first it's like $900. That was like my first, like, I was personal training at the time, coach. And I'm like, I'm doing this because this term means something. And so
Mhm.
it's funny because now I've kind of woven that back in, starting my coaching academy, which I'll talk about in a minute if you want. But
Yeah, sure.
back to your question, I think it's important. Look, in the end, if you're thinking about a coach, I would really tune in, use your intuition, and ask questions, and do a converse, Zoom or audio, have a conversation with that potential coach and ask questions, what their style is like. How do you make changes? Like, what are some of the past coaching clients you've worked with, and how they had shifts in their life? I would do a little homework and then use
Mhm.
your intuition to decide. Like, not everyone is I'm not the right coach for everybody. um, I just would be mindful because there's a lot of people that use that word. And some, do I think a training and certification helps? Yeah, like anything, I think it does
Yep.
help. It gives you a lot more experience and
Mhm.
grounding. I mean, I've been teaching at Georgetown in their certification program for a while. I've started my own. Have I met people that coach without training and are great? Yeah. I know actually a guy, I worked with him for a little bit. He has no training and he did an excellent job. He was really good at getting curious and asking questions. But there
Mhm.
were things I remember, I was like, oh, I might do this a little different. So it doesn't, I just would be mindful. I would listen clearly and carefully if they're telling you that they're going to help you by giving you the answers, or if that's what you're looking for, then what you're looking for is more of a consultant, is more of a
Right.
um,
Right.
coaching. The other thing I'll say quickly is what's really powerful is if the goal is to help someone to be empowered and to realize, like, become self-sufficient, which is to me the biggest gift you can give anyone, is not to rely on me as their coach. That's not what I want. Which you might say is not the best business model, but it's not a bad one either for
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
But the goal is for you to be an expert in you and for me to help you to feel that way and know that way. Then you become independent, connected, grounded to yourself, and you're able
Mhm.
to spread that to others. That is different than being dependent on me. And my goal is the opposite. I do not want people dependent on me. That doesn't mean they don't come back or we don't have, catch up
Yeah.
sessions. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best feelings is someone, I believe, who coaches is when you see kind of what a person has learned from you, but they implement it in a new area of life or in a new aspect, and you see how they've shifted because they've taken what they've gained from your interactions and
Yeah.
actually apply it. And that's probably like one of the best compliments
Yeah.
and results from a coach.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful.
To me, this is one of the most, I think of it as very sacred work, because what you're doing is you're helping someone to detach from crazy beliefs and thinking. And I'm not putting a judgment, but things that are really not serving your best. And
Hmm.
I've seen it. I think what drives me, I love my dad, but he's in his late 70s, and I think feels like kind of missed it. Like he didn't tune into his gifts. And when you're working with a coach, they're going to help you to see your unique brilliance, your gifts, what's getting in the way. And I'm just a believer, like, you get one shot in this lifetime. It's, the 1 in 14 trillion chances that you were born anyhow. Like,
Yeah.
do everything you can to just, with levity, to be your
Yeah.
best self. And coaching is all about that, and holding that safe space and holding that for the person until they can do it and see it themselves. So,
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. And what you said earlier is it takes kind of a team to live and really become your best self.
yeah, and I think it's actually a great thing that that is the design, because I don't think we're meant to be living in a vacuum. I really think we're meant to be connected. We already are connected energetically. We forget that. As much as you and I are individuated expressions of the divine, we're also literally, through the quantum field, we are connected. So
Mhm.
for me, it's actually, it gets me out of my own crazy head sometimes. And first of all, it allows me to be of service and allow others to be of service. And I found it to be one of the most enriching things. And I'll tell you, I used to feel like, oh my God, I'm bothering that person, or I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to need support. I actually think it's a gift. I think we're meant to support one another. And to me, this is the age of Aquarius is about community, connection, and supporting one another. I just believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I completely agree. And there's so much good that comes from it. So we all benefit. So I really appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with people, kind of what they need to think about and just ponder, especially as this year wraps up?
I would just say the two things that come to mind are one, I think of like reflecting upon the past. I would look at this year and I would do a kind of like a year in review. I would look at it from a year in review of what are the gifts, what are the biggest learnings, what are your takeaways. This is what I would be doing for coaching you. Like
Yeah.
go through without judgment, and really look and see what is it that you have harvested, that you've learned, that you would never have gone otherwise. And I highly recommend doing that before you then look at the future. And this is kind of what I do in the book. It's called PhD. Like look at the past. Then I would do an
Mhm.
honoring the present. What do you honor right now? What is working? That's the H. And then D, what is the direction of your dreams? What is it that your heart desires? What do you want to take from the learnings of your past this year, especially that you want to carry forth and call forth in the year? So I've been doing this. I do this kind of daily, I'll be honest, because it's just
Mhm.
like a practice, but I've been doing it this week and next week. And it's like really powerful to see, oh my God,
Yeah.
I never thought this time of being home with kids, with no school
Yes.
is actually a blessing. And what I've got, so I'm wearing this, it's like for me, the most important thing is to slow down,
Yeah.
to tune in, and to just surrender. And creating from what's worked in the past, what you're learning, and then creating from that place, it's a whole different way of doing awareness. I will recommend, if it's okay, I just saw,
Yeah. Absolutely.
okay, huge fan of Ram Dass. He
Okay.
passed away a year ago. His film on Gaia TV is called Becoming Nobody.
Okay.
I recommend you watch that. It is awesome. It's
Okay.
about being with whatever is, letting go of attachment, being of service, and just being in the moment, learning your heart. And I just, my husband and I've been a little obsessed. We're like Ram Dass all the time. I know we're like 30 years later, but that the film is really powerful. It's on Gaia or Amazon Prime.
Okay, I wrote it down and I'll definitely take a look and hopefully
Yeah,
some of the viewers will as well, because
so
we can
good.
always use new ways to look at things and new ideas,
Yeah.
especially going into a new year.
One more. I got one more.
Sure, sure.
He's amazing. Leon Logothetis is on Netflix and Amazon, and he has the Kindness Diaries, the Kindness Diaries 1 and 2. He travels around the world in the first one, in Alaska to Argentina on the kindness of strangers. So in his car, filling up his gas tank, staying over, food. He can't use money. It's all based on the kindness of others and
Wow.
very uplifting. It's been like, oh, people are wonderful. So I recommend that
Okay.
too.
Okay, I'll look at that one as well. I haven't heard of. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Well, I really have enjoyed this, and please share with our listeners and viewers how they can get a hold of you. What's the best way?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the easiest thing is probably my website, which is juliereisler.com.
Mhm.
That's Reisler. I know we say it, it's
Yeah.
German, we say it wrong, but that's all right. Everything is kind of on there. I mean, I'm social
Okay.
media all at Julie
Yeah.
Reisler. The only other place I would say, if you're looking for meditations or some of the talks that I've done with some of the key experts around stress and
Mhm.
pandemic, I have courses and meditations on Insight Timer. It's a really
Okay.
fantastic free meditation mindfulness app. If you just go to Insight Timer /Julie Reisler or look it up, me and like thousands of teachers are on there. So
Okay.
cup of tea, find somebody else.
Okay. Well, it's wonderful. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us, sharing to my audience. And I really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Oh, Amy, thank you. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. I'm really honored. You're such a bright light, and I'm thankful to be part of this. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. And all of you, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of this year and start the new year with thoughts of health and wellness on your mind and how you can grow each day. Take care all. Bye.